My name's Riley Carter, and I was 12 when the world started to unravel. I lived in a cramped apartment on the edge of Chicago's South Side, where the city's pulse, honking cars, shouting neighbors, and the distant wail of sirens never stopped. It was loud, chaotic, but it was home. I'd always been the quiet kid, sketching in my notebook or losing myself in comic books, dreaming of superheroes who could fix anything. But that winter, something shifted. It wasn't dramatic, not like in the movies where the sky splits open and the hero's life changes forever. It was slower, sneakier, like a crack spreading through glass. It started with the shadows. I'd be sprawled on my bed, pencil scratching out a sketch of Spider-Man, when I'd catch something in the corner of my eye, a flicker, a blur, like someone had darted past my open door. I'd whip around, heart thudding, but the hallway was empty, just the faint glow of the kitchen light spilling across the worn carpet. "Mom?" I'd call, my voice small. She'd be at the stove, stirring spaghetti sauce, her nurse's scrub still on from a 12-hour shift. "What's up, kiddo?" she'd say, not looking up. I'd mumble, nothing, and go back to my drawing, but my hands would shake. It happened again the next night, then the next. Always the same, a shadow, a movement, gone when I looked. I told myself it was the city playing tricks, old pipes creaking, streetlights flickering through the blinds. But it didn't feel like that. It felt alive. Then came the whispers. I was in my room, headphones on, blasting Fall Out Boy to drown out the world, when I heard it, a low hum, like a radio stuck between stations. I yanked off my headphones, ears ringing, and listened. Nothing. Just the usual city noise. I put them back on, cranked the volume, but there it was again, sharper now, cutting through the music. Riley. My name, spoken soft and clear, like someone was standing right behind me. I spun around, my chair squeaking, but my room was empty. My posters, Batman, Naruto, a faded Lollapalooza flyer, stared back at me. My heart slammed against my ribs. I checked under the bed, in the closet, even behind the door. Nothing. I didn't sleep that night. I sat up, clutching my sketchbook like a shield, drawing jagged lines until dawn broke. I didn't tell Mom. She was already stretched thin, working overtime to keep us afloat after Dad left when I was 9. I didn't want to be another problem. But the whispers didn't stop. They got louder, more insistent, weaving into my thoughts. At school, I'd be in math class, trying to focus on fractions, when I'd hear it again, "Riley, look." I'd glance around, expecting a teacher or a classmate, but everyone was bent over their worksheets. The voice wasn't coming from the room, it was inside my head. I started doodling in the margins to stay calm, sketching monsters with too many eyes, things I couldn't name. My teacher, Mrs. Delgado, noticed. "You okay, Riley?" she asked one day, her brow furrowed. I nodded, forcing a smile, but my palms were sweaty. I wasn't okay. I was terrified. The shadows started to change, too. They weren't just blurs anymore, they had shapes, vague but menacing, like figures carved from smoke. I'd see them in the school hallway, lurking near the lockers, or outside my window at night, swaying against the city skyline. They didn't have faces yet, but I could feel their eyes, heavy and cold, watching me. I stopped sleeping much, afraid of what I'd see if I closed my eyes. I'd lie awake, listening to the whispers grow into a chorus, a jumble of voices, some soft, some sharp, all angry. "You're weak," one said. "You can't hide," another hissed. I'd pull my blanket over my head, pretending it could block them out, but it never did. One night, it got worse. I was brushing my teeth, the bathroom mirror fogged from the shower, when I heard it again, "Riley." This time, it wasn't a whisper, it was a growl, low and guttural, like something hungry. I froze, toothpaste dripping down my chin. In the mirror, behind my reflection, I saw it, a shadow, taller than me, its edges jagged like broken glass. It didn't move, but I felt it, like a weight pressing on my chest. I stumbled back, knocking over the soap dish, and ran to my room, slamming the door. I didn't look in mirrors for a week after that. I started wearing hoodies, pulling the hood low to hide my face, as if that could keep the shadows away. But they were always there, waiting. I knew something was wrong with me. I wasn't stupid, I'd seen enough TV to know about mental illness, about people hearing things. But I didn't want to believe it. I told myself I was just stressed, that it'd go away if I tried harder to be normal. I stopped talking much at school, kept my head down, avoided my friends' questions about why I looked so tired. But the voices didn't care about my plans. They followed me everywhere, on the bus, in the cafeteria, even in my dreams. And the shadows? They were getting closer. I could feel their breath sometimes, cold and sharp, like winter air. I was 12, and I was already fighting a war no one else could see. The worst part? I didn't know if I could win. By the time I turned 13, the shadows weren't playing hide and seek anymore, they were hunting me. I was in 8th grade, navigating the overcrowded halls of Lincoln Middle School, where the air smelled like sweat and cheap body spray. I used to love school, the chaos of it, the way I could blend into the crowd and sketch during lunch without anyone bothering me. But now, every step felt like walking through a minefield. The shadows had faces now, twisted and wrong, like something out of a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. They'd appear in the strangest places, behind the vending machine in the cafeteria, crouched in the gym's bleachers, or pressed against the classroom windows, their claw-like fingers tapping the glass. No one else saw them. Kids would shove past me, laughing, clueless, while I stood frozen, my heart jackhammering as a creature with glowing, ember-like eyes stared me down. The voices were worse. They'd evolved from whispers into a full-on assault, a cacophony of shouts and snarls that drowned out everything else. "You're nothing," one would spit, sharp and venomous. "They're all laughing at you," another would sneer, low and mocking. Sometimes they'd just scream my name over and over, like a broken record, until I wanted to claw my own ears off. I started wearing earbuds everywhere, blasting music so loud it hurt, but the voices always broke through. They weren't just in my head anymore, they felt alive, like they had their own minds, their own plans. I'd sit in history class, pretending to take notes, while a voice hissed, "Look behind you." I'd resist, gripping my pencil so hard it snapped, but eventually, I'd turn, and there it was, a shadow thing, tall and jagged, leaning over my shoulder. I'd bite my lip to keep from gasping, tasting blood, while my classmates droned on about the Civil War. I stopped telling Mom anything. She'd noticed I was quieter, that I wasn't eating much, but I'd shrug it off, saying I was just tired. She was exhausted, too, her shifts at the hospital were brutal, and I could see the worry in her eyes when she looked at me. I didn't want to add to it. I tried telling my best friend, Jamal, once. We were at the skate park, watching kids grind rails, when I blurted out, "Do you ever see things? Like, stuff that's not there?" He laughed, thinking I was joking, and said, "What, like ghosts?" "Lay off the horror flicks, Riley." I forced a laugh, but it hurt. He didn't get it. No one did. I started pulling away, skipping our usual hangouts, ignoring his texts. It was easier to be alone than to pretend I was fine. The shadows started getting bolder. One day, during PE, I was jogging laps in the gym when I saw it, a creature, bigger than the others, crouched in the corner. It wasn't just a shadow anymore, it was solid, real, a twisted mix of wolf and man, with matted fur and claws that scraped the polished floor. Its eyes burned red, and its mouth stretched into a grin that showed too many teeth. I stopped dead, my sneakers squeaking, while kids ran past me, shouting and laughing. "Carter, move it." Coach yelled, but I couldn't. The thing was staring at me, its head tilted like it was sizing me up. "You can't run," it said, its voice a low growl that vibrated in my chest. I backed away, tripping over a gym mat, and scrambled to the locker room. I locked myself in a stall, panting, until the bell rang. When I came out, it was gone, but I could still feel its eyes on me. Nights were the worst. I'd lie in bed, the city's hum filtering through my window, and the shadows would gather. They'd line the walls, silent but watching, their shapes shifting like smoke. The voices never shut up. They'd taunt me, telling me I was weak, that I'd never escape them. "You're ours," one said once, so clear it felt like it was sitting on my chest. I started sleeping with the light on, but it didn't help. The shadows didn't need darkness, they lived in my head. I stopped watching horror movies, even though I used to love them, because they made it worse. Every jump scare, every monster, felt like it was feeding the things I saw. I tried drawing them instead, filling my sketchbook with their twisted forms, claws, eyes, teeth. It was like if I put them on paper, I could control them. But they always came back. School became a battlefield. I'd see the wolfman in the halls, its claws clicking behind me as I rushed to class. Other shadows joined it, smaller ones, skittering like insects, or tall ones that loomed like warped trees. The voices would narrate my every move, mocking me. "Look at her, she's scared," they'd say as I fumbled with my locker. "She's gonna crack." I started failing tests, forgetting homework, because I couldn't focus with them screaming in my head. Teachers noticed, but I brushed off their questions. "I'm fine," I'd say, my hoodie pulled tight, earbuds in. But I wasn't. I was drowning. One day, it went too far. I was in the cafeteria, picking at a soggy burger, when the voices got loud, louder than ever. "They're watching you," they said. "They know you're weak." I looked up, and every kid in the room seemed to be staring at me, their faces wrong, like masks hiding something worse. The wolfman was there, too, sitting at a table, its claws tapping the plastic tray. I stood, my chair scraping, and ran, shoving through the double doors. I didn't stop until I was outside, gasping in the cold March air. A teacher found me, asked what was wrong, but I couldn't explain. "How do you tell someone your head's a war zone? That you're seeing monsters no one else can?" I just shook my head and let her drag me to the nurse's office. They called Mom, and I saw the fear in her eyes when she picked me up. I wanted to tell her, to spill everything, but the voices were there, whispering, "She'll hate you. She'll lock you away." So I stayed silent, sinking deeper into the dark. I was 14 when the walls I'd built to hold myself together crumbled. 8th grade was a blur of skipped classes, failed tests, and a gnawing dread that followed me like a shadow, except the shadows were real, and they were winning. I'd stopped talking to almost everyone. Jamal, my old best friend, had given up trying to reach me after I ghosted him for months. My mom was a ghost herself, working night shifts at the hospital, leaving me alone in our apartment with the voices and the monsters. I'd become a master at hiding, hoodie up, earbuds in, eyes down. But you can't hide from what's inside your head. The voices were a constant now, a storm that never let up. They weren't just mocking anymore, they were commanding. Run, they'd hiss as I walked home from school, my sneakers crunching on the icy Chicago sidewalks. Hide, they'd snarl when I sat at the kitchen table, pretending to eat the takeout Mom left me. Sometimes they'd tell me to do worse, things I couldn't even think about without shaking. "Prove you're real," one voice growled, low and guttural, like it was daring me. I'd dig my nails into my palms, hard enough to leave crescent-shaped marks, just to feel something else. But it wasn't enough. The shadows were everywhere, lurking in the stairwell, pressed against my bedroom window, their red eyes glowing like brake lights in the dark. The Wolfman was the worst, always there, its claws clicking, its breath hot and rancid. I'd see it in my dreams, too, chasing me through endless alleys, its laughter mixing with the voices. I stopped going to school most days. I'd tell Mom I was sick, faking a cough, and she'd nod, too tired to argue. I'd spend hours locked in my room, sketching the monsters to keep them at bay. My sketchbook was a battlefield, pages filled with snarling jaws, hollow eyes, and twisted limbs. But drawing wasn't enough anymore. The voices started narrating my life like a cruel play-by-play. "She's failing," they'd say as I stared at a blank math worksheet. "She's alone," they'd taunt when I saw kids laughing outside my window. I felt like I was sinking, like the world was a pool of black water, and I was too tired to swim. One night, it all broke. I was walking home from the bodega, clutching a bag of chips, when the voices hit like a tidal wave. "It's not real," they screamed. "The city, the people, they're all demons. You're trapped." I froze on the sidewalk, my breath clouding in the February air. The streetlights flickered, and the shadows surged, dozens of them, crawling from alleys, their shapes warping into claws and teeth. The Wolfman was there, towering over me, its grin wide and hungry. "Run," it said, and I did. I dropped the chips and sprinted, my sneakers slipping on ice, my heart pounding so hard I thought it'd burst. The city blurred, cars honking, lights smearing into streaks. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to escape the fake world the voices swore was a lie. I ended up in an alley, wedged behind a dumpster, my knees pulled to my chest. The voices were relentless, chanting, "You're nothing. You'll die here." The shadows circled, their forms shifting, some insect-like, skittering on too many legs, others human-shaped but wrong, their faces melting like wax. I rocked back and forth, muttering, it's not real," but I didn't believe it. The Wolfman crouched in front of me, its claws scraping the asphalt. "You can't hide," it growled. I squeezed my eyes shut, tears burning, and waited for it to end, waited for it to take me. A flashlight beam cut through the dark. "Hey, kid, you okay?" A cop, his voice gruff but kind. I couldn't answer, my throat tight, my body shaking. He called for backup, and soon I was in the back of a squad car, the city lights flashing past. Mom was waiting at the precinct, her face pale, her scrubs wrinkled. She hugged me so tight it hurt, but I couldn't hug back. I felt empty, like the voices had carved out everything I was. They took me to a hospital, not the one Mom worked at, but a place with locked doors and nurses who spoke in soft, careful tones. A doctor with tired eyes sat me down and asked about the voices, the shadows. I told him everything, my words spilling out like a dam breaking. He listened, scribbling notes, then said the word that changed everything, schizophrenia. It hit like a slap. I'd heard the word before, on TV, in whispers about crazy people, but now it was mine. I saw Mom's face crumple, her hand over her mouth. I wanted to tell her I'd be okay, but I didn't know if I would. The voices were quiet for once, but I could feel them waiting, lurking like the shadows. The doctor talked about meds, therapy, a plan, but all I could think was, is this who I am now? A diagnosis? A freak? They admitted me that night, and as I lay in a stiff hospital bed, the Wolfman appeared in the corner, its eyes glowing. "You're ours," it whispered. I turned away, staring at the ceiling, and made a promise to myself I'd fight. I didn't know how, but I'd fight. The psych ward was a world of gray walls, gray linoleum, gray faces. I was 15, stuck in a place that felt like it was designed to erase you. They took my shoelaces, my phone, anything dangerous, and gave me a room with a bed bolted to the floor and a window that didn't open. The air smelled like bleach and despair, and the fluorescent lights buzzed like insects. I wasn't Riley Carter anymore. I was a patient, a number, a problem to be fixed. The other kids on the ward were like me, lost, angry, scared. Some talked to themselves, some stared at nothing, some screamed until the nurses sedated them. I wondered if that's what I looked like to them, broken. They started me on meds the first day, little white pills that tasted like chalk. The doctor, Dr. Patel, said they'd quiet the voices, but at first, they just made me feel like I was underwater. My thoughts were slow, heavy, like trying to run in a dream. The voices didn't stop, they just got muffled, like someone turned down the volume. The shadows were still there, too, slinking along the edges of my vision. I'd see the wolfman in the group therapy room, its claws tapping the table while we talked about coping skills. I'd see smaller shadows, spider-like things, crawling up the walls during art therapy. I didn't tell anyone. I'd learned my lesson. Talking about the monsters made people look at you like you were dangerous. Group therapy was the worst. We'd sit in a circle, a dozen kids with diagnoses longer than their names, while a therapist named Karen asked us to share. Most kids didn't. They'd mumble or glare or doodle on their handouts. I stayed quiet, my hoodie zipped up, my hands stuffed in my pockets. But one day, a girl named Mia, with purple hair and a nose ring, called me out. "What's your deal, hoodie girl?" she said, smirking. Everyone stared. I froze, the voices hissing, "She knows. She's one of them." I muttered, nothing, but my voice cracked. Mia rolled her eyes, but later, she slipped me a note, "You're not alone." It was the first kind thing anyone had done in weeks. Mom visited every day, bringing my sketchbook and takeout from our favorite diner. She'd sit on the plastic chair by my bed, talking about work or the weather, but her eyes were red, her smile forced. I hated what I was doing to her. She'd always been my rock, the one who'd braid my hair when I was little, who'd dance with me to old Beyoncé songs in the kitchen. Now she looked like she was carrying the world. "We'll get through this, Riley," she'd say, squeezing my hand. I wanted to believe her, but the voices laughed. "She's lying," they'd whisper. "She'll leave you." I'd squeeze her hand back, silent, afraid they were right. The shadows got bolder at night. One time, I woke up to a figure at the foot of my bed, a woman, tall and thin, with hollow eyes and a mouth that stretched too wide. "You'll never leave," she whispered, her voice like rustling leaves. I screamed, thrashing, until a nurse burst in, shining a flashlight. "Just a nightmare," she said, but I knew better. The next day, they upped my meds again. The world got blurrier, my body heavier, but the hollow-eyed woman didn't leave. She'd appear in the bathroom, her reflection replacing mine, or in the rec room, standing behind the TV while kids played Uno. I stopped looking at reflective surfaces, kept my eyes on the floor. The other kids noticed. "What's she staring at?" they'd whisper. Some avoided me, like my diagnosis was a virus. Others mocked me, calling me Crazy Carter. I didn't care. I just wanted out. The worst part wasn't the ward or the meds, it was the fear. Fear that this was my life now, that I'd never be normal again. In therapy, Dr. Patel asked about my hallucinations, but I couldn't describe them without feeling like I was summoning them. "They're monsters," I said once, my voice barely audible. He nodded, scribbling, and said, "We'll work on that." But how do you work on something that feels more real than the chair you're sitting on? I started drawing again, filling my sketchbook with the hollow-eyed woman, the wolfman, the spider things. It was the only way to keep them from swallowing me whole. Mia saw my drawings once and said, "Damn, girl, you're twisted." But she smiled, and for a second, I didn't feel so alone. After 6 weeks, they let me go. "You're stabilizing," Dr. Patel said, handing Mom a bottle of pills and a list of therapists. Stabilizing. Like I was a bomb they'd defused. I went home, but the apartment felt different, smaller, like the walls were closing in. The voices were quieter, but they weren't gone. The shadows lingered, watching from corners. I sat on my bed, clutching my sketchbook, and wondered if this was what better felt like. The wolfman appeared that night, its claws glinting in the moonlight. "We're still here," it growled. I didn't scream. I just stared back, my heart pounding, and thought, I'm still here. 2. I was 15 when I decided I wasn't going to let the monsters win. I was back home, back in school, but nothing felt the same. The meds made me feel like I was wrapped in cotton, everything was slow, muted, like living in a fog. I'd shuffle through the halls of Lincoln High, my hoodie up, avoiding eye contact. The voices were softer now, more like a hum than a scream, but they were still there, whispering doubts. "You're weak," they'd say when I fumbled a test. "You'll break," they'd taunt when I sat alone at lunch. The shadows hadn't left either. I'd see them in the corners of classrooms, their shapes flickering like bad TV reception. The Wolfman was the boldest, always lurking, behind the bleachers, in the library stacks, its red eyes boring into me. But I was done running. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Ellis, a lanky guy with glasses and a voice like warm coffee. He didn't talk to me like I was a patient, he talked to me like I was a person. The voices, the shadows, they're not real, Riley, he'd say, leaning forward in his creaky chair. They're your brain misfiring, like a glitch in a game. I didn't fully believe him. The Wolfman felt realer than the desk between us, but his words gave me something to hold on to. He taught me to challenge the voices, to talk back. You're wrong, I'd mutter under my breath when they called me worthless. I'm here. It felt stupid at first, like arguing with a bully who wasn't there, but it worked. The voices didn't stop, but they started to lose their edge. Drawing became my weapon. I'd spend hours in my room, my sketchbook open, pouring the monsters onto the page. The hollow-eyed woman, her mouth gaping like a wound. The spider things, their legs sharp as needles. The Wolfman, its claws dripping ink. Every line, every shade, was a way to trap them, to take back control. I'd show my sketches to Dr. Ellis, and he'd nod, saying, "You're turning fear into art." That's power. I didn't feel powerful, not when I'd wake up at 3 a.m., heart racing, because the voices screamed my name. But I kept drawing, kept fighting. I started writing, too, journaling every hallucination, every lie the voices told me. It was like mapping a war zone, learning the enemy's moves. School was still a minefield. I was in 9th grade, trying to catch up after months of absences. Kids whispered about me, some knew I'd been in the hospital, others just thought I was weird. I didn't care. I had one friend, Mia, the girl from the ward, who'd text me memes and check in when I went quiet. She got it, she had her own battles. But even with her, I felt alone. The meds helped, but they made me tired, my hands shaky. I'd drop my pencil in class, and the voices would laugh. Clumsy, they'd hiss. I'd grit my teeth and pick it up, refusing to let them win. But some days, they almost did. One afternoon, I was on the bus home when the voices got loud, louder than they'd been in months. "Jump," they said, sharp and urgent. "Get off now." I gripped the seat, my knuckles white, as the bus rumbled down Lakeshore Drive. The Wolfman was there, sitting across from me, its claws tapping the window. "Do it," it growled. I saw myself opening the emergency exit, stepping into traffic, the screech of tires. The image was so vivid I could taste the asphalt. I closed my eyes, breathing hard, and started counting backward from 100, a trick Dr. Ellis taught me. 99, 98, the voices screamed, but I kept counting, my voice a whisper. By the time I hit 50, they'd faded to a murmur. I opened my eyes. The Wolfman was gone. I'd won, for now. Mom noticed I was trying. She'd leave notes on the fridge, "Proud of you, kiddo." She started taking days off to spend with me, watching old Marvel movies or cooking tacos. It wasn't perfect, sometimes I'd catch her watching me, worry creasing her face, but it was something. I started setting small goals, finish a drawing, go to class, talk to Mia. Each one felt like climbing a mountain, but I did it. The voices still taunted, the shadows still watched, but I was learning their game. They wanted me to break, to give up. I wouldn't. Not because I was strong, half the time, I felt like I was falling apart, but because I had to. For Mom, for Mia, for the kid I used to be, who believed she could be a hero. The Wolfman could growl all it wanted. I wasn't his prey anymore. At 16, I thought I had the monsters caged. I was wrong. I was in 10th grade, balancing school, therapy, and meds like a tightrope walker. The voices were a low hum most days, the shadows just flickers I could ignore. I'd even started smiling again, laughing with Mia over dumb TikToks or sketching with Mom on the couch. Dr. Ellis said I was making progress, and I believed him. I felt like I was clawing my way back to normal, or at least something close. Then I met Jake, and everything went to hell. Jake was new at school, a senior with a leather jacket and a grin that made you feel like you were in on a secret. He sat next to me in art class, smirking at my sketch of the Wolfman. "That's dark," he said, but not like he was judging. He was charming, reckless, the kind of guy who could talk you into anything. We started hanging out, grabbing burgers, sneaking onto rooftops to watch the city lights. He didn't know about my diagnosis, and I didn't tell him. With him, I felt like Riley, not Crazy Carter. But Jake had a dark side, one I didn't see until it was too late. One night, we were at his friend's apartment, a grimy place with stained carpets and loud music. Jake pulled out a baggie of pills, grinning. "These'll take the edge off," he said. "Make you feel free." I hesitated. I knew drugs were a bad idea, Dr. Ellis had drilled that into me. But the voices were creeping back, louder every day, and I was tired. Tired of fighting, tired of the fog, tired of being me. Just once, I told myself, and swallowed the pill. It hit like a freight train. Colors exploded, walls pulsing, lights dancing like fireflies. The voices vanished, replaced by a warm, electric buzz. I laughed, spinning in the cramped living room, feeling alive for the first time in years. Jake high-fived me, his eyes wild. "Told you," he said. Then it turned. The colors bled into shadows, sharp and jagged. The Wolfman appeared, bigger than ever, its fur matted with blood. "You thought you could escape?" it roared. The voices surged, a deafening chorus. "You're dead," they screamed. "You're nothing." The room warped, faces melting into skulls, walls dripping like wax. I ran, shoving through strangers, their laughter twisting into snarls. I burst onto the street, the Chicago wind biting my skin, but the shadows followed. They were everywhere, in doorways, on billboards, their claws reaching. I saw the hollow-eyed woman, her mouth a black void, whispering, "You're mine." I sprinted, my breath ragged, convinced I was being chased by demons. I ended up in a park, collapsed on a bench, my heart pounding like it had burst. The voices were relentless, chanting, "You're done, you're done." I saw myself running into traffic, the screech of brakes, the end of everything. I curled up, sobbing, clawing at my arms to feel something real. Jake found me hours later, his face pale. "You're fine, Riley," he said, but his voice shook. I wasn't fine. I was shattering. He got me home, and I lied to Mom, saying I was sick. I locked myself in my room, the shadows crowding the walls, the voices laughing. "You're weak," they said. "You'll always lose." The next day, I called Dr. Ellis, my hands shaking as I told him everything. He didn't judge, just listened, then said, "You made a mistake. You're still here. That's what matters." He adjusted my meds, set up extra sessions. I swore I'd never touch drugs again. The pill had made the voices louder, the shadows sharper, like I'd fed the monsters instead of starving them. I went back to my sketchbook, drawing the night's horrors, skulls, claws, Jake's face twisted into something inhuman. It was a reminder, no shortcuts, no escapes. The fight was mine, and I couldn't afford to slip again. Mom found out eventually. She didn't yell, just hugged me, her tears soaking my shirt. "We'll figure this out," she said. I nodded, but the voices whispered, "She's lying." I pushed them down, focusing on her warmth, her heartbeat. Jake tried to text me, but I blocked him. He wasn't worth the risk. I wasn't cured. Wasn't even close, but I was alive. The Wolfman could howl, the shadows could stalk. I'd keep fighting, because giving up wasn't an option. Not anymore. By 17, I found something stronger than the monsters, a reason to keep going. I was in 11th grade, still on meds, still seeing Dr. Ellis, still fighting the voices and shadows every day. The fog was lighter now, the voices a murmur most of the time, but they never left. The Wolfman still showed up, its claws glinting in my peripheral vision, and the hollow-eyed woman haunted my nightmares, her whispers like ice in my veins. But I wasn't the scared kid from the alley anymore. I'd learned to push back, to live despite the war in my head. And I wasn't alone anymore, not completely. The biggest anchor was Max, my dog. Mom got him for me after the Jake disaster, a scruffy mutt with floppy ears and eyes that saw right through me. He was a rescue, like me, and he didn't care about my diagnosis. When the voices got loud, screaming, "You're worthless," Max would curl up next to me, his warmth grounding me. I'd stroke his fur, focusing on his steady breathing, and the voices would fade to static. If I saw the Wolfman in my room, Max would nudge my hand, whining, like he knew I needed to come back to reality. He was my tether, my proof that the world wasn't just monsters and lies. I'd take him for walks along Lake Michigan, the wind sharp and cold, and for a few minutes, I'd feel free. The voices could scream, Max didn't hear them, and that was enough. Art was my other lifeline. I'd always drawn, but now it was more than a coping mechanism, it was defiance. I filled sketchbooks with the monsters, turning their snarls into ink, their claws into graphite. I drew the Wolfman mid-roar, the hollow-eyed woman with her gaping mouth, the spider things skittering across pages. Every stroke was a middle finger to the things trying to break me. I started posting my work online, not hiding my schizophrenia. I wrote captions about the voices, the shadows, the fight. At first, it was just for me, a way to scream into the void. But people found me, kids like me, scared and alone, saying my art made them feel less broken. "I hear voices too," one messaged. "Your drawings make me think I can keep going." Those words hit harder than any med, any therapy session. I wasn't just surviving, I was helping. School was still rough. I kept to myself, eating lunch in the art room with Mia, who'd become my ride or die. She'd blast punk rock and talk about her own battles, depression, cutting, a mom who didn't get it. We didn't sugarcoat things, we just understood. But other kids weren't so kind. Rumors about my hospital stay had spread, and I'd hear whispers, psycho, freak, when I passed. One guy, a jock named Tyler, cornered me in the hall, smirking. "Heard you see demons, Carter. You gonna flip out?" The voices surged, hissing, "Hurt him." I clenched my fists, picturing the wolfman tearing into him, but I walked away. "Not worth it," I muttered, more to the voices than to Tyler. Mia high-fived me later. "You're a badass," she said. I didn't feel like one, but I was trying. The online hate was worse. Some called me a liar, saying I was too normal to be schizophrenic. "You're faking for attention," one comment read. Others were crueler, telling me to end it or calling me a danger. I'd scroll through the messages, my stomach twisting, the voices echoing their words. "They're right," they'd say. "You're nothing." But then I'd get a DM from a kid in Ohio, saying my blog saved them from giving up, and I'd keep going. I started a Discord server, a space for people like us to talk about diagnoses, meds, or just dumb memes. It wasn't a cure, but it was a community, a place where I wasn't crazy Carter. I was Riley, and that was enough. Mom was my rock, too. She'd started therapy herself, learning how to support me without burning out. We'd have normal nights as pizza, Marvel movies, Max sprawled across us. She'd ask about my art, my blog, and listen like it mattered. One night, I showed her a drawing of the hollow-eyed woman, my hand shaking. "That's what I see," I said. She hugged me, her voice steady. "You're stronger than her." "Riley." The voices laughed, but I believed her, just a little. The monsters were still there, waiting for me to slip, but I had anchors now, Max, Art, Mom, Mia, my Discord crew. They weren't a shield, but they were a sword. I'd keep swinging, no matter how hard the shadows clawed. I'm 18 now, and the war in my head hasn't ended. It probably never will. I'm in my first year at a community college in Chicago, studying art, chasing a dream that feels as fragile as glass. The voices are still there, a low hum on good days, a scream on bad ones. The shadows haven't left either, the wolfman lurks in lecture halls, its claws tapping my desk, the hollow-eyed woman watches from bathroom mirrors, her whispers like a cold wind. Some days, I'm strong. I ace a drawing assignment, laugh with Mia over coffee, or post a blog that gets hundreds of shares. Other days, I'm back in that alley at 14, curled up, terrified, the voices telling me I'll never be enough. But I'm not that kid anymore. I've got scars, but I've got fight, too. College is a new battlefield. I'm majoring in graphic design, hoping to turn my monsters into a graphic novel someday, a story that shows the world what it's like to live in a fractured mind. My professors don't know about my diagnosis, and I like it that way. But it's not easy. The meds still make me foggy, my hands shaky when I draw. I've had to drop classes when the voices get too loud, when the wolfman sits in the front row, grinning. I've got accommodations, extra time on tests, a quiet room if I need it, but I hate using them. I want to be normal, even if I know normal is a lie. The voices love that. "You're faking," they hiss when I ace a project. "You'll crash," they sneer when I'm happy. I talk back now, muttering, "Shut up," under my breath. It's not a cure, but it's a rebellion. My blog's grown, tens of thousands follow me now, from kids in small towns to adults who fought their own demons. I post my art, my story, my truth. I talk about the bad days, when I can't get out of bed, and the good ones, when Max and I walk by the lake and I feel alive. The hate still comes, trolls calling me a liar, saying I'm too functional to be schizophrenic. "You're not sick, you're just weird," one DM read. I used to let it hurt me, the voices echoing their words. Now I block and move on. The messages that matter are the ones from people like me. "Your blog kept me from giving up," a girl in Texas wrote. "I thought I was alone," a guy in New York said. Those keep me going, even when the shadows close in. Mom's my biggest cheerleader. She's framed my drawings, hung them in our living room like I'm a real artist. We've got a rhythm now, movie nights, therapy check-ins, Max sprawled between us. She still worries, I can see it in her eyes, but she trusts me to fight. Mia's still my rock, too, even though she's at a different school. We text daily, swapping playlists and stories about our messed up brains. My Discord server's a lifeline, hundreds of us, sharing tips, venting, laughing. It's not just a community, it's a family, one that gets the chaos of living with a mind that betrays you. The monsters haven't gone soft. Last month, I had a bad episode. Walking Max at dusk, I saw her, the hollow-eyed woman, standing by the lake. Her face was mine, but wrong, decayed, empty. "You're dead," she whispered, and the voices surged, chanting, "Give up, give up." I froze, Max whining at my side, and saw myself walking into the water, sinking into the dark. I gripped Max's leash, his warmth pulling me back, and counted backward from 100 until the vision faded. I went home, drew her, posted it with a caption, "She tried to win tonight." She didn't. The likes poured in, but the real win was waking up the next day, still here. I dream big now. I want my graphic novel to hit shelves, to show the world we're not monsters or myths, we're fighters. I want society to stop fearing us, to listen instead. Schizophrenia is a part of me, a loud, ugly part, but it's not my whole story. I'm Riley, artist, daughter, friend, survivor. The voices can scream, the shadows can stalk, but they don't get the last word. I do. And if I can keep going, so can you. The horizon's out there, jagged and bright, and I'm running toward it, one step, one sketch, one fight at a time.